In today's Cook and Clean with me, I'll be sharing some seasonal, very affordable recipes for you to try, and a couple time-saving frugal cleaning secrets that I have. Hello, I'm Shayla, an earthy mountain mama and happy wife. I'm a homesteading homeschool mom to 6. My husband and I are second-generation homeschoolers and have been married almost 20 years, and I've been a homemaker for 30 years. I got an early start homemaking for my family when I was still a teenager. Last year, our family began buying our dream homestead after longing for one for over 25 years. This homestead's in the mountains, so if you enjoy homesteading, homemaking, and homeschooling content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm starting out the day with some intentional quiet time and planning. Since I have ADHD, I found that if I don't have a plan for the day, I can kind of get lost in activities and end up not being as productive in the end as I could have been had I had a good list of things to do. So I like to sit down and make myself a list.
The trees, they are singing.
I'm going over some menu ideas right now. We have a lot of food that we just harvested from our garden. And so I am going through some of my favorite recipe books, and I'm making a list of all of the foods that need to be processed and what I would like to do with them. Last year for my birthday, my oldest son bought me Mastering the Art of French Cooking, Julia Child's volumes. And so I am going to dig around in this book for something to do with all of the carrots we've had coming in. Homeschooling takes quite a bit of time. It's kind of like a full-time job almost. I do have 2 days a week though, where the kids do independent studies that they don't need me for. And I take the time to do the homemaking and homesteading activities. I have a lot of tips and tricks for managing this many children. You can find them here and there throughout all of my videos. But one of them is at the beginning of the day, and especially big days, to sit down with the kids and go over what you would like for them to be doing for the day and what the plans are for the day. I found that it helps so much. I have a chore chart system which you can find linked to in the description box down below. So in this scene, I am reminding the kids that I just want them to follow through with their regular chores today and simply just to stay on top of their studies. Plus, that when they get done, I would love it if they would join me in the kitchen for some quality time and some cooking lesson time, as one of the goals for my children is for them all to learn how to become adept in the kitchen, as I never want them to go into adulthood and feel lost in the kitchen. I want all of my children to know how to feed themselves healthy, good meals and nutritious meals. First up in our list of things to cook is this pear butter. I started it a couple days ago and it's been cooking down, and I just pop it in the fridge at night when I'm not going to be watching it and bring it back out in the day. So I've been cooking it down for a few hours each day, and it's so good. I'm going to warm it up today and we're going to can it later. In fact, I think if my daughter gets done with her school, I'm hoping that she will be able to can it. Both my high schoolers have home ag as electives, and I have been working on teaching food preservation for a year and a half now. We're working on a full credit. All right, I'm not gonna lie, this is a little embarrassing, but I did mention I have ADHD, so there's that. I burnt something and I wanted to show you guys how I get things like this clean. So this pan had like an inch of burnt on gunk in the bottom. I found the easiest way to get them clean. Simply put washing soda and water in your pan and let it simmer for a little while, and it comes right out. No scraping, no scrubbing. All right, notice in this sink how I just dumped all that gunk into the sink. There's only one reason I'm able to do this, and I'm going to show it to you now. Check this out. Look at this little basket. My husband's a carpenter, and one of his clients introduced him to this ingenious little invention. It's a drain that has a basket, a deep basket. This basket's like maybe 2 inches, so it holds a lot, and it keeps large particles from clogging and going down your drain. I highly recommend this. I will link to it in the description box below. But I gotta tell you, we got this and all of the kids are just crazy about it. You know, kids don't like to when they're doing dishes, they don't like to reach down into the drain and clean it out if it gets clogged. So we haven't had a problem with filthy sinks like we did before ever since we got this nifty little drain. Back to the washing soda though. Look at how well it cleaned out this pan. It's going to take just an ever so slight amount of scrubbing, but it works like a charm. I keep washing soda by my sink just for things like this. I don't burn things very often, but every now and then it does happen. This is one of my favorite kitchen tools, this brush. I don't like to be without one ever since I found them. These things are so fast. It feels like they reduce cleaning time for dishes by maybe half. I do have them in 2 different styles. This one's a little bit sturdier. The bristles on it are a lot more brisk. It's one of my favorite brushes for cast iron pans. Last week I harvested the last of the onions from the garden and I transplanted the scallions in my windowsill and they're already getting so big. I also transplanted the rosemary and brought it in. It won't winter where we live, it gets too cold. I'm gonna make some browns now and check on the kids, make sure they're doing their studies like they're supposed to be. All right, guys, we're gonna talk about kitchen cleaning cloths. This is an e-cloth. I'll link to it below. It works okay. I do like it. However, it doesn't hold a candle to Norwex. I said Norwex. I am not a Norwex dealer, but I do have some Norwex cloths that I purchased probably 8 years ago, and to this day, they're still going strong and they're still my favorite cleaning cloths. I know a lot of people have a problem with companies like Norwex though. So I wanted to show you guys the next best cloth, and it is these cloths here. Again, I'll link to these below as well. They don't work as well, but they do work better than a regular cleaning cloth or a cotton cloth. I want to show you guys this. This is one of my favorite cleaning agents. It's a homemade cleaning agent. It is simply 2 cups of vinegar with 1/4 cup citric acid, and you just simmer it until the citric acid dissolves. This stuff is amazing. It's the best decalcifier and demineralizer for sinks and even your cooking pans and pots. It works so well to get any kind of mineral deposits out within minutes. You let it soak for probably 2 minutes maybe. I've even used it on shower doors that were completely corroded, and for that it took a little bit longer. It probably took about 5 minutes, but this stuff will take away all of the hard water stains. So you can see in this scene how well it did, and it only soaked for about 1 to 2 minutes, I want to say. I have a soft scrub homemade one that I make, and I'll share it at the end, but when I don't have time for that, I like this stuff. It's supposed to be less toxic. It doesn't have perfumes or dyes in it, I don't believe, and it works very well. I just get it at my hardware store. I don't like to use harsh chemicals like bleach, so I use peroxide instead. Peroxide has some whitening and bleaching abilities, but it is far less toxic than, say, your bleach and your Clorox. I like to douse my brush down, and this grate, you don't have to have one of these grates in your kitchen sink, but I find them so handy, and since I do have a porcelain sink, I like this grate because it protects the sink. One of my favorite uses for this brush is definitely cleaning the sink. It makes super fast and easy work of cleaning a kitchen sink. While I'm cleaning this space, I want to talk about something. If you're new here, you don't know this, so I'll tell you. I like to include heavenly little talks or devotionals in my videos. And today I've been thinking a lot about the new trend, beauty in the mundane, and the art of noticing. I really love that this is trending. Mark 4:25 says, "For to him who has, more will be given, and from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away." All around us, there are things that are beautiful. There are blessings, there are miracles, but the thing is that if you haven't learned to notice them, and if you haven't learned gratitude, you'll miss it. But here's the tricky part. The art of noticing beauty in the mundane, it's like a muscle that needs to be worked out. If you don't work it out, it won't grow and you won't notice, and you'll miss out on all of the good things happening around you and the miracles and the blessings. But on the other hand, if you work that muscle, you will notice more. You'll be more sensitive to the miracles and the beautiful things happening around you in a day's time. On the other hand, if you focus on the negative, there's a muscle that grows there too, and you will become very strong at noticing the negative. This is something that I've had to work on in my life. I very strongly believe that childhood has a lot to do with it. I've noticed people that had more positive and trauma-free childhoods naturally have the ability to see more good, but people that come from more of a trauma background have to work a lot harder at noticing the joy and the beauty in the mundane and the blessings and gratitude. And it is hard work for those people. But that Bible verse is really true. If you can find just a little bit of gratitude, if you can find just a little bit of beauty, you will start to see more in your day. But if you can't, then you'll just start seeing less and less and less. For myself, it's a journey, but step by step, I'll get there. All right, butternut squash. I got some people in the house that think they hate it. And so I have challenged myself to come up with a way to cook this stuff that everybody likes it. And I succeeded. More about that in a second though. Cutting these things up and cutting up pumpkins is not easy, so I went for my trusted Nakano knife here, which brings me to today's sponsor. This is my second time working with Nakano, and I was so thrilled when they approached me for a second time to do another collaboration. I've had this Mito Santoku knife for a couple months now, and I absolutely love it now more than I even did the first days that I got it. This knife is not only beautiful, but it is very strong. These knives are handmade in Seikai, Japan. I think I'm saying that correctly. They're made by craftsmen using ancient Japanese crafting techniques passed on for generations. The Mito Santoku handle is natural olive wood, and the blade is high carbon stainless steel. With as much food as I and my family prepare in the kitchen, it's very important to us to have good quality sharp knives. I think everybody knows a dull knife is very dangerous to use, and so we like our knives to be pretty sharp, and these knives do a very good job of holding an edge. We sharpen them and they're good to go for quite some time after. Of all of my knives, I think this one is probably the most comfortable knife to handle, and it is certainly the prettiest knife. And as I mentioned, extremely durable and strong. So there is no other knife that I have in my knife drawer that I would reach for a tough job like this. Nakano is going to be offering Mountain Homeschool Homestead viewers a discount, so be sure to come back often and check in the description box below. I will update in the description box when that discount goes live. In the meantime, it's not too early to start holiday gift shopping, so hop over to the website to check them out. So with this butternut squash, I'm just going to pop it in this pan here and put a little bit of water in so it doesn't get dry. And I'm going to slow roast it since my wood stove is already going. I don't need to waste any propane or electricity. I can just put this over in the wood cook stove and let it go. The wood cook stove is running at about 200 degrees right now. And so I'm just going to pop this in there and forget about it and go on to the next things to do on my to-do list. Before I go on though, I do need to clean out my compost bucket. It hasn't been cleaned out in probably over a week. If you guys like to compost and you like having, a kitchen that doesn't have an open compost pail, like I used to have, just hanging out in your kitchen, collecting fruit flies, I highly recommend one of these compost buckets. They even have a charcoal filter in the top to control odors. It is time to take another gander around the house and see where the kids are at in their school. Gotta make sure everybody is staying on task. Even though this is one of our independent school days, the older kids are great about staying on task. The younger ones still need some reminders and just for me to make sure they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Next up, the cabinets. Oh my goodness, this looks bad, but I'll be truthful with you. I do clean these at least once a month. Now, in our previous kitchen, we had black bases, which were pretty, but they hid dirt so well that you didn't know they were dirty. And when you would go to clean them, they were nearly impossible to clean because of how long it had been since they had been previously cleaned. Since they never looked dirty, there was never a reminder to clean them. I like these better for when They're a really good hard quality finish that is durable, and so that it is nice because it makes them easier to clean. And I like the white because I don't forget to clean them. They kind of require me to notice. Gonna have a little tea break here. I am an avid tea drinker. I drink tea all day long. I start out with coffee and then move over to tea. I do a variety of herbal teas. So I'm using that same cloth to clean these cabinets. And again, this is one of those tasks Norwex definitely does do a better job of, but if you're not into that, I would highly recommend getting one of these cloths to clean with because they do clean a lot further than a regular cotton cloth. And by that, what I mean is you don't have to go rinse them out as often. So with a Norwex, you only have to rinse them out like maybe 7 times less than you would a cotton cloth. These ones, I want to say you have to rinse them out maybe 3 times less than you would with a regular cotton cloth. All right, if your kids help out with dishes, you're gonna want to hear this. Notice I have got this pump hand soap container that I'm putting my dish soap into. One time I went into the kitchen and I had a fresh little container of dish soap, and 3 days later it was gone almost because the kids didn't know how to use it properly and they wasted a lot of it. So putting your hand soap into one of these containers helps kids learn how to use it more conservatively instead of using a whole bottle in 2 days. I discovered these super nifty hooks a few years back. I was using them for our chore cards, but then I found out there's a whole host of things you can use them for. I use them for utensils on my refrigerator and to put my wet, dirty dishcloths to dry. When they're dry, I just take them off and put them in the laundry. If you put them in the laundry when they're wet, of course, they're going to mold and mildew. So this is a great way to keep your towels organized. I put clean ones up and we use them throughout the day, and then at night they dry, and the next morning I come in and take the old ones off and put new ones on. Something that helps our family stay more organized in the kitchen are these kitchen duty checklists and chore cards. These help prompt the others that are doing kitchen duty, and they help them remember all of the steps to produce a properly cleaned kitchen. I consistently have to remind my children to look at the kitchen duty checklist and the chore cards, but it does beat having to do it all myself in order to get the job done right. Next on my list, I'm going to do a little bit of herb and spice organization. So last summer, or all through the summer, I was drying different herbs and vegetables just throughout the summer because not everything was ready at the same time. So every time I would harvest something that needed to be dried, I would dry it and then put it in a jar. And then after it's put in the jar, it needs to be put in the freezer for a couple of days. This kills all kinds of little critters that might be living in it still. And if you didn't know that happens and just found out, I'm sorry to be the one to break the news. But anyways, once you pull them out of the freezer, they're ready to be put onto your shelves. So you can see here, I have a nice little collection of herbs and I need to combine them all together. So that's what I'm doing in this scene. And I'm going to be also processing some of the herbs. So this is some dillweed that needs to be ground up for storage. All of this has been properly dried and then frozen. And as you can see, I just have too many jars. I've got like 3 little small jars of the same thing, and I've got probably 3 or 4 large jars of dried onions, and I just need to go through and combine everything because I don't want to have, like 50 jars all over my kitchen of the same thing. If you don't have a label maker that you love, I would definitely look at this one. It feels really flimsy and chintzy in your hands, like it's gonna break, but I think I've had this one for 4 years now and it's still working. I like it because the material for the labels is easy to get and it's super affordable. You can get labels in a variety of colors. You can get gold, which is really pretty, or silver. You can get the traditional black, and of course this is red. I've also seen it in white. The white seemed kind of difficult though because I wouldn't recommend the white. The letters are clear and it's really hard to read the writing on white. I have this cart. It fits perfectly between the stove and the refrigerator, but it's been a year and a half And even though this thing has been by the refrigerator for most of that time, and you would think I would remember that I have spices on it, I never do. I forget that the spices are on it. So I decided I need to put these spices here somewhere else. Also, things get really greasy up here quickly since it is next to the stove. So I'm going to clean everything off, and I'm going to find something else to put here that makes more sense to put here. I'm thinking utensils on the top. Since I'm already cleaning those consistently, may as well put something here that, you know, I'm already going to be washing all of the time, so that it doesn't matter so much if it gets some grease splatters. And then on the bottom, I'm thinking other utensils that are actually taking up space in drawers that I could use to put the herbs and spices in, since herbs and spices kind of need to be in a dark and cool spot anyways. I am making a big mess here, but you can kind of see what I've got going on. I got the utensils, they're going on the cart now, my olive oils and just different cooking utensils. And over here in this drawer, I'm going to put the spices and herbs so that they're close, within reach when I'm cooking, and where they're in a place where I will be more likely to remember to use them. Again, we've got those hooks I was just telling you about here on the side of the fridge. Okay, now this is making much more sense to me. I've been thinking about putting the herbs and spices in this drawer for quite some time, and I am glad I did because it's already making way more sense to me. It's time to get some dinner started. I am going to be making raviolis tonight. If you guys don't have a good pasta recipe that you like, homemade, from scratch pasta, but I've got a complete tutorial with recipe and all in a video that I did last summer, and I will link to it in the description box below. Right now, I am not following my own recipe. I have been making pasta for, I don't even know how long, let's see, close to 30 years. I've been making pasta, my own pasta, off and on throughout that time. So I am used to making pasta, and I have all this egg yolk that I need to use. It's been in the freezer, and I don't have a lot of eggs right now because our chickens are molting, but I do have this egg yolk and it needs to be used. So I'm just going to use one egg and all of these egg yolks. It's probably around 10 egg yolks, and I'm going to make like a quadruple batch of pasta. I was tickled. It turned out, it feels like a good consistency, and when I went to make the pasta with it, it was slightly stickier than, you know, is normal, but it worked. If you're not used to making pasta, I definitely recommend finding a tried and true and trusted recipe like the one that I do have in the pasta tutorial video I made. So I got the pasta done. I put it in the refrigerator all wrapped in saran wrap, and it's going to sit to rest for a while so that it becomes easier to work with. You always want to let your pasta dough rest before you go to work with it. Next up, I am going to do something with all of these apples. Last month, the kids and I went to a very tiny little farm orchard, and we picked 20 pounds of apples and 20 pounds of pears, and it was so fun watching the little children's eyes light up. They had been to an orchard before, but I don't think the youngest one remembered. He would have been a very small baby when we went to an orchard the first time. So he especially, watching his eyes light up as he was picking the apples off the tree. The apples came low enough to the ground that he could reach them, and I really wish I had brought my camera because watching his eyes, it was just so special. Again, beauty in the mundane, you know. These apples have been sitting in the garage for quite some time, and it is getting to be past time that we use them. So an apple crisp is definitely going to be in order with these. I'm going to make my grandma's apple crisp. Grandma didn't measure. Grandma just dumped things in a bowl and explained to me what she was doing, and so that's how I do this. I did come up with a rough recipe for you guys watching though. So for this, I'm going to leave these apples a little bit bigger. You're going to serve this right away. You could cut them smaller. Since I'm going to be serving this tomorrow, I want the chunks a little larger since I'm going to be reheating it. I'm going to make this really easy for you guys. Here you go. Just grab a screenshot. You can save it on your phone and you can have it for when you go to make this recipe. I do want to tell you something about fresh ground nutmeg. Some people think they don't like nutmeg. I used to think I hated nutmeg until I had fresh ground nutmeg. I don't know if the stuff goes stale after it's been ground and sitting in a jar for a while, but the flavor of fresh ground nutmeg versus nutmeg that you buy pre-ground is just totally different, and the fresh ground is so much better. So this is ready. I'm gonna cook this, but I'm not gonna cook it full time because again, I want to reheat it in the morning and I don't want it to be too soggy. So I'm only gonna cook this 40 minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on it, and when it looks like it's just about to be done, I'm gonna take it out and then I'm gonna finish cooking it tomorrow. Look over here, you guys, I got some sourdough bread going. Just keeping it here on the counter and covered so that no fruit flies or anything get to it. They've been a problem this year. Let's talk about ways to stretch meat. One of my favorite ways to stretch meat is to buy a cheaper meat and mix it with a more expensive meat, ground of course, and mix them together. But there's something else that you can do to stretch your meat. It's so simple. Just add rice. So what I have here is sausage, I have ground beef, and I have rice in approximately equal parts. And I have seasoned this up, and this is what I'm going to use in the ravioli filling. I'm going to use the butternut squash and this sausage, hamburger, and rice mix. It's also got cheddar cheese in it, and I just mixed it all together. So this is super simple, and I know that it probably sounds like a strange flavor combination to a lot of you out there. I learned of this flavor combination probably 20 years ago though, and I thought it sounded horrible when I first saw it, but give it a try, and I was very pleasantly impressed, just as my family was. So the secret ingredient when you're cooking with meats and squashes like this and you're combining them is sage, you guys. Sage is the magic herb that makes this dish. I'm completely pulverizing this together since this is going in a ravioli. And you guys, it looks bad, I know, but the flavor is insanely, unbelievably good. You have got to try it. Meanwhile, the kids finished school and it's afternoon and they're downstairs now sorting carrots. These are all of our carrots that we harvested from our garden a few days ago. We were waiting until after the first frosts so that the sugars in the carrots would increase. All right, this apple crisp is done. I'm gonna let it cool off over here. It looks delicious. And I'm gonna go back downstairs and make sure these boys know what they're doing. They're gonna cut the tips off and the ends and just sort the carrots.
I told the boys when they were harvesting these to get the tops off, but they didn't cut them short enough. So they're getting a little soft, and I think once they get into the moistened sawdust, they'll be okay.
And my daughter, she's upstairs and she is managing the canning. She's canning the pear butter, and she is doing most all of this herself while I go back and forth between the kitchen and the basement supervising the boys. Since she has things under control, I think I will make the kids a treat. I'm gonna make them not pumpkin pies, but like pumpkin pies. I'm gonna make them butternut squash pies. So I've got this recipe for a pumpkin pie, and it's similar to like a sweet potato pie, and I'm just gonna follow that. Instead of the pumpkin, I'm gonna use the butternut squash.
This is one of my favorite cookbooks. It's just my old Betty Crocker cookbook that I got from my grandma. It's a Betty Crocker's cookbook, new and revised edition. One of my favorites. And I am simply doing the Betty Crocker pumpkin pie, and I'm using butternut squash instead of pumpkin.
All right, I'm having a sentimental moment here. This can opener was passed down to me. It was my aunt's, and I think that before it was my aunt's, it was my grandmother's. And my grandmother is the one who really got me sold on homemaking. For the crust, I'm using unsalted butter. Unsalted butter tastes so much better in pie crust because you can control the amount of salt that you put in. And there's just something about unsalted butter that makes pie crust taste better, in my opinion. I didn't believe it would when I first heard about it a long time ago, but I tried it and I noticed there was a difference. I wanted to make like little cupcake-sized tart pies, so my daughter's helping me. Since I do have so much butternut squash to use up, I've been dreaming up all kinds of different things that I could do with it. And one of the ideas I came up with was a butternut squash cheesecake. So basically a knockoff of a pumpkin cheesecake. I wasn't sure how good this was going to be. I had the feeling it was going to be pretty good, but I had no idea it was going to be as phenomenal as it is. I think that this may be what I end up doing with the majority of the butternut squashes that I have left, because this was astonishingly delicious. Time to start making the raviolis, and I'm going to do it in small sections. Again, if you guys want to know how I make pasta, I've got that tutorial for you linked to in the description box below. This pasta maker was a hand-me-down. You can still find them though. They are still being made and sold. Maybe not this brand, but ones just like it. They also make KitchenAid attachments. I like my hand crank one just because I guess I'm a little old-fashioned that way. And of course, if the power ever goes out, I can still make pasta. The kids absolutely love helping roll the pasta dough. I am trying to make raviolis with this ravioli attachment, and I don't know if it's because my dough was too sticky or what, but I think that's what it was. I could not get them to turn out very well, so I went back to the old hand making ravioli way, and it's super simple too. I'm going to make a browned butter and crispy sage sauce, and I just happened to remember that I still have some sage growing beneath the snow outside. This is one of the most delicious sauces. You just brown the butter and you cook the sage just to where it starts to get crispy. Once the ravioli is done, you just toss them in the browned butter and sage and enjoy, and believe me, you will enjoy. These are unbelievably good. All of the kids liked them except for the youngest, who is still quite little, and he enjoyed just the plain butter and pasta. The rest of the family totally dug these. The mini butternut squash pies are done. One of the reasons I wanted to do it this way is because it makes it a lot easier to pack them for my husband's lunches. But of course, the bonus in making them this way is the kids absolutely love little tiny mini pies. My bread is ready to go in the oven. I have a bread lame here. I went many years without a bread lame. This bread lame is probably about a year old. I started making bread when I was just 10 years old. So you guys, I have been making bread for a long time. And all of those years, I have never used a bread lame until last year. I definitely vote for the bread lame. It does make it a lot easier. I know making bread is a trend, but for us it's not. It's something that I've always done. I've gone through seasons where I've made it less often than others, but sourdough bread is a lot easier to digest, and our family has some issues with wheat, regular wheat bread, so we try to limit it And sourdough is one of the ways that we can eat it where, even for me, who is the most sensitive, it doesn't seem to affect me very much. I just can't overdo it. It's time to start kitchen cleanup duty. Normally we eat Washi Floors once a week on Friday, but today it's really bad. You can't even tell they were done just a few days ago on Friday. So I am going to hit them again. I will link to my favorite non-toxic floor cleaner in the description box below. This might sound silly, but I think my most anticipated recipe of the day is from that Julia Child cookbook. I absolutely love making the recipes in that cookbook. There's something so special and just timeless about those recipes that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside just by opening the cookbook. Definitely really good comfort food. I'm going to make page 477. Now, I've attempted glazed carrots in times past, and they were not good. So I'm curious to see if we're going to like these. Stay tuned. I'll tell you if we like them in just a few minutes. One of the mistakes I used to make when I was making these was I cooked them too long, I think. So for this recipe, I am not going to follow it completely. I did learn early when I was just starting to make recipes from this book. My family told me, Mom, we like it when you use your judgment in seasonings more than we do when you follow the recipe exactly. So I noticed on a lot of the Julia Child recipes, it does say season accordingly. Okay, so there's that. So I do the seasonings a little bit different, but I'm also, for this recipe, I didn't want to use sugar. I'm using honey. I don't know why I have such an aversion to following recipes exactly. I think it could possibly maybe be because I know what my family likes and I know what they don't like. I also know what I like and what I don't like. So I usually adjust every recipe I make ever so slightly, even if I am trying to follow it step by step. And with seasonings, I usually always put twice the amount of seasonings that a recipe calls for in, just because that's how we like it. But I am trying to read this recipe to the T to make sure I follow it as close as possible, because I really am trying to follow these recipes as close as possible. Maybe it's just in honor of Julia Child, I'm not sure why, but I do like trying to keep these recipes pretty close. This recipe calls for some optional parsley. And my parsley survived the first snow or two, so I'm gonna go get some. And it is such a gorgeous evening here.
Somebody's going for an A on their home ag assignment. Well, I'm pretty proud. This is the first time you've done this all by yourself.
The second batch of pear butter is coming out of the canner. My daughter handled it all by herself, and I could not be more proud. This is definitely a success for her extracurricular home ag projects. Every single jar sealed, so that's a success for sure. I don't have time to show you this recipe, so I'll just explain it. It is so good. It is smoked maple walnuts. So for that recipe, I just take about a pound of pecans and about half of a cup maple syrup. And to that, I add about 1/4 teaspoon hickory smoked seasoning. And then I roast these on a super low heat, stirring every 15 minutes until they're done. They are a very big hit in our family. The whole family loves them. And I'm thinking they're gonna pair nicely with these carrots, so we might sprinkle a few of them on the carrots when they get done, just before serving. While I'm waiting for those carrots to get done, I am wrapping with some natural wax paper all of the little pies. I want these to be easy for my husband to grab and go with on his way out the door for work in the morning since he has to get up early and leave for work. I don't want it to be something he has to cut and then dish up. I just want him to be able to grab it, drop it in his box, and go. I've noticed with my husband, if it's too much trouble, he will just not bring anything to lunch. And then, of course, he gets too thin. And I don't like that because he's, of course, not getting nutrition. So I try to keep easy stuff on hand for him to grab. The carrots are done. They're ready for the seasoning, and it's just about time to serve them. So we're going to put the butter, the last amount of butter. There was already some butter in them, but we're putting in some more butter, and the parsley. And guys, yeah, you should make these. They're definitely worth making. Very, very good. Some of the kids still like fresh carrots, raw carrots better, but most of us in the family love these. They were gone within minutes. And wouldn't these be such a lovely Thanksgiving side dish? Everybody smells it, and the family starts rolling into the kitchen. I put a thermometer in the bread so that there's never any guessing as to when it's done. But another way that you can tell that it's done is if it is hollow when you knock on it, it's probably done. With sourdough, I find it is a little bit harder to tell though. That's why I like to use a thermometer. All right, guys, I told you I would tell you where to find $2.99 meat right now. Costco. We were in Costco just a few days ago, and that's why I rushed to get this video out, because I wanted to tell you where to find the meat. Costco, $2.99 meat. All right, friends, it's starting to get dark, and so I'm not going to take you along with me while I go to clean the bathrooms, but I will show you my bathroom cleaning trio. I've got my homemade soft scrub, I've got my stench X, and I have my citric acid vinegar. The citric acid vinegar makes quick and fast and very easy work of scrubbing down the sinks, the bathtubs. The soft scrub, I told you I'd give you the recipe. It is so easy. I do have it in another video, but I'm not sure which video it was that I included that recipe. So you just take about 2 cups of baking soda and you mix in about 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup of any kind of dish soap. And stench X, guys, if you don't have stench X and you have little boys, you need stench X for your bathrooms. It really works. Well, I did not make it through everything that I meant to make it through today, but I did get a really good start on the week. I got a lot of food made for the week ahead, so I have less cooking that I'll have to mess with. The day is closing, dinner's ready. We got a bunch of happy little bellies here, and it's time to close this video. I may, if you guys enjoy this, do some more fall cleaning videos. I barely scraped the surface of the fall cleaning today. I basically just saw that I have a lot of fall cleaning ahead of me to do. So if you guys want me to film more of that and to see more of the process, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.